Ah, hello, fellow sentient. I am the janitor, and I'm here to present to you a full summation of the history and reality of sentient life on planet Earth, how we got here, and what this thing we call life is doing. Let's have a little conversation about what life really is, of its poor construction, its unintelligent design, its futility, its cruelty. And then let's further our conversation by discussing why it should never be imposed. Yes, that's right. Life is an imposition. So, let's talk about the meaning of life. Let's start from the beginning, shall we? For whatever reason, the universe initiated. The Big Bang. Aberrant science runs amok. Crude mechanics, crude physics, matter and energy. High-energy photons smashing, crushing, pressurizing, creating elements. It's a mixing bowl. It's a chemistry set gone wild, with all the ingredients leaking into each other, commingling, lots of bad ingredients mixing badly. And then gravity and nuclear forces start tying matter into bigger and bigger pieces, forming stars and planets, and of course with them, Earth. And on Earth, energized atoms formed compounds, and after bouncing around for a few billion years, something happened. The universe, up until this point, was certainly violent, but benign, free of sentient creatures, and therefore free of suffering. But all that changed when the tragedy of abiogenesis occurred. The first reproducing cell, DNA, our one single ancestor, the seed of sentient print media. And so, life arose in many mechanical forms. And eventually, life became conscious. We became sentient. And then, perhaps the most pitiless step in all of our evolution, the first ouch. And this was truly the beginning of all problems in the universe. The most precious thing in the entire material universe is the capacity for a consciousness to generate a sensation of horror and unpleasantness, to be harmed and to suffer. That is where all value, not just some value, but all value is generated, in the consciousness of sensitive, sentient creatures. So nature created better and better gladiators, directed and steered by the molecule, with the powerful motivators of pain and pleasure. Propelled by our want, our deprivation, to enter the maze game of ambition, desire, and delusion. Human beings came from apes, and being raw animals, we didn't know how to control our world yet. We had to acquire our knowledge of everything. So we played the game, we picked and scratched at the world, trying to learn how it works. We refined our intelligence. But all of human history, we've struggled to accept the truth. We've given magic powers to crystals, we've phantasmagoricalized the trees and the dark and the animals. And at some point, we became smart enough to think up the dumb idea of a god as an explanation for life. We had become smart enough to become superstitious, but not smart enough to know that's all we were doing. We had drawn the wrong conclusions. And we have sentenced billions upon billions of lives, both animal and human animal, to those wrong conclusions, as well as nearly an infinite number of other bad ideas. We are addicted. But amongst the din, amongst the falderal and celebration and parades, a few voices have expressed a different idea about life. An idea that articulates that life is a failed experiment, that to create it is an imposition, and that it is simply wrong to create need for no need. Simply stated, that it is unethical to procreate. Don't have kids. There's no reason for a parade after all. You are doomed. And this idea is called anti-natalism. Not many have spoken about anti-natalism in the past, but among them there has been Arthur Schopenhauer. If children were brought into the world by an act of pure reason alone, would the human race continue to exist? Peter Zapffe. A coin is turned around before it is handed to a beggar, yet a child is unflinchingly tossed into cosmic bruteness. And Emile Cioran, to name a few. We have lost being born as much as we shall lose dying. Everything. Then there was Efilism. It's antinatalism plus. It's life spelt backwards. It's just another way of saying, I believe there is something fundamentally broken in the natural mechanism of the circumstance we call life. Just another way of raising your hand and saying, yes, it is unintelligent design. No God created this, and life existing as the product of that unintelligent design has real negative consequences on sentient creatures. Evolution has consequences. Unintelligent design is going to create huge volumes of waste and sloppiness. Unintelligent design means an ocean of suffering. Unintelligent design means insufficient sufficiency, and that insufficiency is not only deep within the system, but that the products of the system, the living things themselves, are likewise not functioning efficiently. They consume more than they produce. We throw need machines into a world from which they can never derive satisfaction without imposing unsatisfied need onto something else. So I will use terms like zero-sum game to describe life, because life does precisely that. We steal energy perpetually, all to replicate a DNA molecule. A molecule that understands nothing of the price paid in suffering by the sentient creatures of this planet. We should be awestruck contemplating 4 billion years of sentient creatures ripping apart other feeling sentient creatures. Continued only out of ignorance, ego, and notions rolling around in heads about life being good. Ignoring with every breath the truth. If it wasn't for that stupid meteor impact, we'd have none of this grace and beauty and love and art. We know where 99.999% of life has been. It's only a tiny fraction, one grain of sand in an entire beach of time that human beings have spent contemplating how joyous and wonderful life is. Life is a replicating and reproducing piece of DNA. For no rhyme or reason, for no purpose, to satisfy no destiny, to do none of that. It's just an accident of biology, of aberrant chemistry. We reject this game. Efilism is knowing that life is an imposition. Efilism is understanding that all value in the universe is derived from the conscious experience of sentient feeling creatures. Efilism is the janitorial duty of trying to have a conversation with the human race about wasted suffering and the responsibility of manufacturing a graceful exit. And that's where I come in. As janitor, I will be your guide. And your first lesson is, life is consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. That is what it is. Those are the ingredients that make up the reality of life on planet Earth. We consume so that we may reproduce. And on an island planet in an otherwise barren universe, we cannibalize each other. And fueling it all are our addictions, our crazed psychologies, our egos, our wants, our desires. We are addicted, insatiable need machines. So now let's begin. Let's start with an easy one first. Perhaps a familiar tale to show you what you already know about the folly of imposing new life. This is reproduction. Once in a castle long ago, there lived Dr. Frankenstein. The doctor was an evil, sadistic shithead of a fucktard who delighted in creating and imposing life on as many beings as possible. Must populate! In his lab, the doctor had 2 powerful buttons, one big green button and one big red button. Dr. Frankenstein never pressed the red button, because it was the big red button, capable of ending all existence in the universe instantaneously.
Why is this even here?
But Dr. Frankenstein loved his big green button, for whenever it was pressed, it allowed him to create strong, healthy, and beautiful creatures who were the happiest people the world had ever known. However, for every 10 of these stupid happy creatures, a Frankenstein monster was born.
Life sucks.
Hideous, diseased, blighted with 1,000 horrors, miserable.
Oh, fuck. Out! Out! Out!
And banished. Some Frankenstein monsters couldn't take it and killed themselves. Others realized that if they killed themselves, Dr. Frankenstein would just keep on making more monsters, more harmables, and more misery. The monsters looked at the stupid happy creatures and realized,
we are the cost of this. We are the price paid.
And so there was only one thing left to do. It was time to pick up their axes and storm the castle.
Hello, Doctor. Are you surprised to see me? Ah, you! Stop making feeling things. No! You didn't ask my permission to be born! Ha! I don't need your permission. The happiness of most of the creatures I create justifies your life of suffering. They serve no function in the universe. They fix nothing. Nonsense! Life is a great idea. Why don't you just kill yourself? Because then I wouldn't be able to stop you! Oh shit! No! Don't!
But perhaps that example was too fanciful for you to truly understand my point. After all, most of us ended up on this planet due to perfectly well-meaning people, correct? Mothers, fathers, those that, although having the best intentions, saw fit to create more gladiators to compete and die here.
My child will be happy. My child will be a good person. My child will be successful. My child will be talented. My child will take care of me. My child will love me.
Why force Sisyphus to continue pushing his boulder up the hill generation after generation? Rolling the dice with someone else's life. Playing Russian roulette with someone else's consciousness. Would you spin the wheel of misfortune with someone else's welfare? Would you impose harm? Our charming lady friend who we met just moments ago was certainly well-meaning. But 9 months later, she gave birth to a monster.
I am a monster. There is nothing valuable in the universe. It all means nothing. Suffering means nothing. Suffering means nothing. Suffering means nothing. I am the nihilist. I am a monster. And I feel nothing. And I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Hello. I'm going to tell you about the child that I'm going to have. I'm going to teach him to be a nihilist. I'm going to teach him to be selfish. I'm going to teach him to take. I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to hurt him every day of his life. I'm going to bite him.
I'm gonna starve him. I'm gonna cut him. I'm gonna isolate him. I'm gonna teach him to torture animals. I'm gonna teach him that suffering doesn't matter. I'm gonna waste his suffering. Harm must go on. I'm gonna cut him. I'm gonna burn him. Suffering must go on. I'm gonna rape him. I am the servant of the DNA. I will harm. I will create life. And I will laugh. But I see you're becoming distraught. I should hope that you're distraught learning that your entire lives are built out of exploitation and shit. It can be very disorienting. But that is the dilemma of the true atheist. It is accepting the fact that you are part of a waste engine, an engine that has 99 times more friction than function. That it is crude forces in control of precious commodities. Gladiators. We are all gladiators. Sent into battle by the DNA, our bodies and everything else we exist as, are but the gladiator suits that the DNA wears, to compete for no purpose against other feeling things in the holocaust of survival. That's what our existence overall has been made out of. That is the heap of corpses, both animal and human animal, our civilization now sits on. It's break a statue to make a statue. The basic function is the same. The function is survival by any means necessary. Whatever can happen, can happen. No umpires, no rules, no Marquis of Queensberry sophistication. Just a blood sport, for nothing in the end, just a raised hand. I win, you die. Cannibalism. Cannibalism has many forms. It is not necessarily simply the act of one human eating another, but a word that perfectly describes the obscenity of the natural meat grinder. Make no mistake, nature is the cause of most of the suffering on this planet. Nature is a brutal, brainless force, completely unsympathetic to the agony of the neurons and consciousnesses in its path. Consider just for a moment this one little horror, a panicked baby elephant, lost, alone, whose mother has been killed in the belly of your precious Mother Nature.
Why? You killed Mama! You killed Mama! You killed my Mama! I'm scared! Mama, they're hurting me! Mama, they're hurting me! I'm thirsty! Oh, there's things chasing me everywhere! I'm gonna die out here!
What of the slaughterhouse pig, who lives an existence of abject misery, all for the benefit of our addictions?
Why won't you help me? They're hurting me so bad. Please stop hurting me. It hurts. Please stop hurting me. Why won't you help me? Why won't you help me? Why won't you make them stop?
And what would be your glib response to his agony? That's just life? That's just nature? And what if the animals could not only speak, but truly had the time and ability to think about what they would really like to say to us? How do you think the animals would condemn life if they could? How many of them would demand Dr. Frankenstein's red button? What memes do you think would fall from their lips?
Your children will be the rapists, murderers, pedophiles, and torturers of the future. And your children will be their raped, murdered, molested, and tortured victims as well. We want the right to not exist. We want the right to say no, to be no individual, to be no animal, to be no gender, to be no nationality, to be no winner, to be no loser, to be no consumer, to be no reproducer, to be no cannibal, to be no addict. The right to be in no life, no domain, no kingdom, no phylum, no class, no order, no family, no genus, no species. The right to say no
to all of it.
The failures are brutal, and the victories are shallow. The universe did not spend 4 billion years to create a grand intelligence. It spent that time creating the best gladiators, who could best extract their survival through force. You cannot, in fact, harmlessly extract your satisfaction in life. You will have a harm footprint. Rationalizing waste to indulge personal desires. The utter debauchery of I want in a world where it's all paid for in a currency no one can afford. And we do it all on an island planet in the universe, a cannibal island, Earth. But some gladiators, the graceful ones, the elegant gladiators, begin to see over the maze of desire, learn to throw down their swords of selfishness, and try, to the best of their abilities, to do their janitorial duty. And in constant pain, breeders take when they give. DNA made you addicted. Now, on to consumption. I'm going to eat you. That's just the way things work out, you know, the cycle of life thing and all.
No, you can't eat me. My comfort and existence are worth just as much as yours. You must not be so rude to my beauty. In any case, your argument is moot. You're just gonna lose in the end, too. You're just as doomed and fucked as I am.
You can't eat me. My comfort and existence are worth just as much as yours? It is true, you are gonna lose too. You are just as doomed and fucked as I am. As you can see, the futility goes nowhere. Consumption is a snake eating its own tail. But we are slightly more than just bacteria. We are bacteria with brains. And so finally, we have come to addiction. And what better example of a brain than the man who calls himself the natalist nihilist? Addiction, the game. Addiction is the key one, the very basis, the very nature of our psychology. We keep moving because of reoccurring hungers, but we are designed to be motivated, not satisfied.
I want!
We cannot help but feed on the illusion of pleasure. We cannot help but selfishly chase the cheese. Most of our pleasures are just eliminating our burdens, however. The pleasure is just a relief from the deprivation. A negative had to already exist to get to that positive. Regardless of the desire, regardless of want or need, big or small, grandiose, normal or eccentric, the point is you are driven as a need machine by your deprivation. Life makes monsters, like me. And now I want one of my own. Addiction created the natalist nihilist. Want and need created a harmable and a harm engine, possessing of both a bad philosophy and a bad psychology. He was a relief from deprivation. He was wanted and needed. But he was bad. And the bad apples are always more poisonous than the good apples are pure. But Efilism is knowing that life is an imposition. Efilism is understanding that all value in the universe is derived from the conscious experience of sentient feeling creatures. Understanding may come fast. Understanding may come slow.
By creating life, you are imposing suffering.
But when the natalist nihilist was exposed to these ideas, a war of memes began in his brain.
Hey Gary, I saw that response you did to that natalist nihilist guy.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people can't get this. I mean, fuck, it's not that fucking complicated. But they can't understand that there's no more precious thing than the capacity of a consciousness to experience a sensation of torture. Too confusing. I mean, the fact that they can't concede that all real value is generated in a vulnerable, sensitive, feeling mind defies reasonable explanation. It's just too stupid.
Hey, look, there he is.
Well, what was that all about?
All right, asshole. We get the point. You've wasted enough time already.
Suffering is delicious! Suffering is delicious! Suffering is delicious! Suffering is delicious! Suffering is delicious!
You're a cockroach. That's right, a cockroach. That has no interest in being anything better than that. You're a cockroach. A fucking cockroach. A cockroach.
Efilism is the janitorial duty of trying to have a conversation with the human race about wasted suffering, and the responsibility of manufacturing a graceful exit. The responsibility, even if you are a monster, even if you are already a werewolf, to search for and find the perfect silver bullet, the perfect argument, and to fire that logic, that understanding, into the other brains around you playing the game. You can try to make people understand that there is a truth, and it's that the design is faulty and that we are doomed. But you can try not to doom anyone else as much as possible. You can try not to impose as much as possible. You can recognize that just being alive makes you a taker, that your every happiness is paid for in another sentient creature's suffering. You can recognize that you are, in fact, an asshole, and you can try not to be as much of an asshole as possible. You can try to understand all the myriad ways in which your sentience is dangerous in this world, and you can try not to impose as much of that dangerousness on the rest of the world as possible. You will, in fact, have an impact. You can use what power you have to end the suffering. I ask you, what has life accomplished that is worth the price of the suffering? What are we really doing here that is worth preserving? DNA isn't doing anything elegant or intelligent. And in fact, before intelligence can do anything, it needs a problem. Something needs to be put in a state of jeopardy. You have to create the victim before intelligence can come to the rescue as Superman. You may wish to preserve Superman, as you have become addicted to his greatness. But you can't keep Superman. You can't keep the value of intelligence without also keeping the horror, without also keeping the victim. What right do you have to enslave more janitors? The burden is heavy, the janitor's work is never done, and until the job is done, the janitor can't go home. What right do you have to keep resurrecting consciousness back here?
Stop waking the dead.
Do we mourn for the non-existent Martians? No. The universe doesn't need us, and there will be no deprivation without us when we finally come to no longer exist. Beyond your addiction, beyond your desire, beyond your moments of glory and ambition, beyond what you need life to be, what is it accomplishing? Besides ouch, 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 ouch. Some of us are lost in the maze, hoping to find a minotaur, hoping to be the minotaur. But some of us learn to look over the maze and to finally see the game and what we're really caught up in. We learn to understand ourselves as insidious mechanisms, to see the inefficiency of the game itself, all the traps and all the risks. And over time, your mission back in the maze will change from one of selfishness to one of productivity. The minimizing of the harm and the maximizing of the comfort of the whole game. Every gladiator can eventually learn to see over the maze game. Even I did. We are cockroaches by nature. That's what we are. Bugs. And we have no interest in doing anything better than that. I'm a cockroach. All we can do is keep our cockroachery to a minimum. But even if our cockroach level is at a minimum, make no mistake, we're still just cockroaches. Life is the sad and tragic story of nature, and humanity has done nothing to write a better chapter in the life book. It's just simply not good enough. And so it's an insufficient game. Like tic-tac-toe, once you're intelligent enough, there's no playability. It's a game for dumb things. Smart things aren't going to find it graceful enough, or fair enough, or just enough, or reasonable or sensible enough. They're just going to find it expensive, and futile, and foolish. There is no need served here beyond what we create, and it's simply wrong to create need for no need. We only ask for the fail-safe. Is it really too much to ask that you be risk-averse? If you could go back in time, find the first DNA molecule and smash it, would you do it? Would you do the right thing? We want extinction. We want a graceful exit. We want it, and we will argue for it. Your children, still yet in the womb now, those not yet fully imposed upon, will argue for it. We will not go away. You cannot dispose of us as easily as you did the Cathari. We are here because of memes. We are here because of logic. Our parents weren't antinatalists. We are your children, and you cannot stop us from looking over the maze and not being satisfied enough with chasing cheese at the expense of stealing it from the other rats. So how will you respond? Will you make a response of some kind? J'accuse. You now stand accused. You now stand accountable to the future. You can't run away from the truth. The memes will have their war inside your brain. There is a truth, and it is accessible, and that truth can be proven by argument and evidence. Let the truth have its day. All the truth needs is a fair fight, and the truth will win, and then it will be the possession of the future. All the best. Goodbye.
From dirt we came, and in constant readers take when they give. DNA made you addicted, made you want to play a game, because we were addicted. We pay in our daughters and sons, and we suffered, and you'll suffer. Will you impose on the ones that you love? Depression and immolation, risks you're willing to pay, but it's not your own life.